Everyone who talked about this matter took it for granted that it was him. But in my opinion... Hey, hello everyone, this is starting to feel a bit like a TV series, but there's no other way. It's hard for us to just leave this matter aside because this is probably a case we haven't seen in a long time, or at least in the last several, maybe even 10 or 15 years, there hasn't been a similar story. I would say new things have come up. Probably those who watched TV today saw that I talked about this case several times. Basically, the phone started ringing as early as 8 in the morning. I think one important thing has come up. It looks like he tried to come home. Yesterday around 10 p.m. he showed up near the house. A police patrol noticed him. The police officers routinely told him to lie down, and this man ran away from where he was, which was near the house. It looks like it was him, but that's the problem. We're not sure. Today, basically everyone who talked about this case assumed it was him. But in my opinion, there's a certain kind of, I would say, risk that it might not have been him at all, that it could have been some completely random person who was just walking there. Even, I would say, a thief or someone who had something on their conscience, someone with a similar build to him, and that's why he ran from the police. Another possibility is, of course, this. Yesterday we talked about the surprising story with his car, which was abandoned. Basically not far away, but after 3 hours, as I said, you can drive several hundred kilometers by car, and he was basically in the area. So there's also the question of whether he came there himself or if someone else came and dropped off the car, because you can't rule out the possibility that someone is helping him in all this. He didn't live in a vacuum for 57 years. From what it looks like today, he had two sides to him. Neighbors and acquaintances say he was the kind of person you could talk to, that he seemed normal, but it turns out that at home he showed a completely different side. We'll probably come back to this topic later, but for now that's how it looks. Yesterday I watched with some concern as the police brought in additional forces, which simply meant that basically it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack, that the search area is huge and it will really take a lot of time to find him. I also use such a, let's say, comparison, maybe not entirely accurate, that after all there was strong partisan activity there. Partisans were hiding and whole units were hiding there from 1939 to 1957. At some point, and here it's just one man, a dangerous opponent because it seems he's a poacher, and poachers, well, you know, they're cunning people who know the forest better than tourists. Sometimes maybe even better than foresters, because they go where basically no one else goes. These are remote areas where wild animals appear. And they also have the ability to construct various kinds of dangerous traps here. They can set them for animals, so if they can set them for animals, they can set them for people. So I think that here the police officers have to be extra careful. Apart from the fact that he's armed with some kind of hunting rifle. Of course, he doesn't have a permit. But even that rifle or hunting rifle is just a homemade weapon that he made himself. So what is the shooting capability of this weapon? I suppose it's pretty good, since this weapon had optical sights. He hunted in the forest, so it's probably quite effective. Well, you can fire this kind of weapon from several hundred meters or even a kilometer away. It all depends on its construction, but as you can see, it's possible. You can really shoot accurately from a distance, and this is an unpredictable person. Well, if we assume that he really was there at night, that he escaped into the forest, then that would actually be a very, I would say, positive piece of news. Both for the police and for the people, because at least we know where he is. Well, right now you can calculate the radius of where he might be, plus add a few more kilometers. That's how it is, let's say, if the person is fit. He can run about 10 kilometers in open terrain within an hour. Well, of course, yes, a few kilometers more or less. It all depends on how fit someone is, but you can calculate it. It can be calculated. And I think the police have already set up a cordon in that area, and now step by step they're combing through it. You have to search. Some people have also said that the police should have caught him by now, but in my opinion that's not the case at all. Time is needed here primarily to maintain safety. As I said, a man with a hunting rifle, with a scope, a poacher who knows how to build traps and knows the area very well, that's a really tough opponent, and we need to be aware of that. And searching such a forest, first of all, it's a huge area, and secondly, it has to be done in a way that no one gets hurt. Well, among the new things, that's the one that would be comforting. Well, I also said today that if it really was him, if these searches are, let's say, precise, then it's just a matter of time before he's caught. How did this situation even happen? What were the first pieces of information? Well, it also seems that at least there was information that what happened was the result of the case. I said yesterday that he had two proceedings. These are abuse-related proceedings, one from 2022 and the other is recent. It's a proceeding from this year. And it looks like the day before all of this there was a court hearing. It seems that at this hearing everyone was saying he was a bad, vengeful man and everyone was afraid of him. Well, it seems that this was the impulse for what he did, because the next day he took a rifle. You remember he first went to his mother-in-law, shot at her, then came home, shot at his daughter and also shot at his son-in-law. He killed them on the spot, so it seems that it was actually planned in some way, that it was an impulse. There was that court hearing, that's of course another thing, but there was a plan. However, I don't think he had a plan. When he showed up at home, he didn't have a plan for what he would do next. I think he came because he simply needed something to eat, something to drink, and maybe he also came for ammunition. So that's why he took the risk to show up at home. But his mentality, I think that's just the kind of mentality he has, where he takes risks. Because after all, as a poacher, he also took risks, since he could have been caught either by the forest guards or by the police. So he's a vigilant, cunning man and very alert to these kinds of situations. That law enforcement officers could be after him. So not everyone, I would say, has it in the back of their mind that they'll be chased, but he does, because he always had to be vigilant so he simply wouldn't get caught. Of course, we all know that right now he's facing life imprisonment, and that's life without parole. Because remember, until recently, a life sentence didn't actually mean life imprisonment. Because someone could apply for parole, but now it's life without parole. So that's what he's obviously facing. He killed 2 people and tried to kill a third. So there's no other alternative here. Besides, that's also a kind of danger, because now he has nothing left to lose. There won't be a higher sentence, so he could be dangerous to people. If he doesn't manage to get food from a house because the police scared him off, then he'll try to do it another way, and that's a danger. I talked about this today to the people who live there, because he might try to break into a house. He might terrorize the people who live there. So you have to be cautious, and you really need to take all these alerts seriously. It's not that something might happen, but here the danger is constant. There's no way out. I know that today, like we said, summer break has started. The stores are open this Sunday and you have to go to church. Well, there's a lot going on. But you have to be alert. Just close the doors and windows and simply keep an eye out to see if anyone is coming by. A stranger with a phone nearby, and if anything happens, call the police. For now, there is no other way. I also keep assuming that we shouldn't talk about it. I mentioned the Jaworek case because after all, this man didn't live in a vacuum. He has friends, he has acquaintances who will either feel obliged to help him or will simply be afraid of him. It's the same with family. Sometimes they have no other choice, which must be considered, and I'm sure police officers consider that too. How does a police officer feel when facing such weapons? Of course, for police officers it's stressful, obviously. As the officers who take part in such operations say, everyone is afraid, the police officer is afraid too. But that's where the skill comes in. You have to be able to skillfully control that stress, those worries, and that fear. Usually when someone is afraid, they can't make a move or take a step because fear paralyzes them, as they say. But in the case of a police officer, that's simply impossible. You can't get rid of fear, it's just not possible. If someone can, they're probably just a psychopath. If someone says they're not afraid, everyone is afraid, so that's natural. But, well, safety measures, as I understand it, bulletproof vests, attack dogs, not just tracking dogs, but also attack dogs. That's what they're there for. Yesterday, officers from the Anti-Terrorist Operations Bureau went there. They coordinate everything. There are anti-terrorist units from all over the country. Well, they also train, like, their job is specific in that they go where no one else will, and they get used to the fact that the danger is actually real. Well, the situation is probably a bit different because anti-terrorist units usually train for such situations in cities, indoors, because it most often involves armed criminals, but also frustrated individuals, you know. Searches in the forest are rather rare. I'm thinking here mainly about the involvement of anti-terrorist units, but they are there, they know what to do, they're trained. I see that drones are also being used and the Black Hawk is being used in the air. Well, of course, there's a problem with the thermal imaging camera because it's warm and tracking based on body heat is difficult. And right now it's practically impossible. It's also a challenge for the dogs because it's a forest. There are animal scents, droppings, and that's also a problem. But if we assume, I think today he is, this information is somewhat reassuring. I hope that despite everything, despite these concerns, it's him. So it looks like, well, with such precise searching, he should be apprehended. It's only a matter of time.
And is the goal of the police at this point to arrest him, or will they try to shoot him?
Well, they definitely have to be careful. It all depends on the situation. The idea of police work is that police officers, unlike soldiers, have weapons and are trained to make arrests. Even if it's a ruthless person like that, the main thing is to detain and capture him alive. That's what the court is for, to judge him. However, the situation can, I would say, develop in different directions. If we assume, because that was supposed to be the case that night, that he was shooting, we don't know if he was shooting at the police officers. If he was shooting at the police officers, then it shows what he's capable of. Whether he was shooting into the air, well, either way, it shows that he's capable of that too. So I think that the mentality of this man, the way he is such that for me, life is already over. I don't have a future anymore, but before I go, I'll show you what I'm capable of. So I think he'll just fight to the very end. If he fights, then of course anything is possible.
And the last question, because there have been some comments saying that the gun ban in Poland is pointless if some guy who isn't a hunter and probably doesn't have a gun permit is still running around with a rifle.
He made that rifle himself. Well, I would say that the skills needed to make a working firearm are, I would say, basic skills for a competent locksmith or someone who knows how to use a lathe. Well, you remember the episode where I talked about how prisoners escaped from the prison in Wadowitz? They made themselves surprisingly effective pistols. As the judge said, they made them in the prison workshops. So I would say that making a weapon is not a problem at all. You can just do it. It's not a big deal. However, you also have to remember that when he went to that forest, he was shooting. Now the question is, maybe for later, people must have known about it. Why did he get away with it? Why was he never caught? Even though he had a weapon, he kept it at home. These are the situations where you need to ask the question, right? No one saw or heard about it back then, but I think we'll leave that for later. As for weapons, of course, there's usually a problem with ammunition, but you can buy it, and actually you can even make ammunition yourself, so it's really not a problem. Secondly, I also talked about this, many people from Rome, I mentioned it, yes. Actually, access to weapons in Poland is quite extensive. I'm thinking here about black powder weapons because these are models, replicas of weapons, and a replica is nothing else but a functional weapon. Like most of the murders that have happened recently in Poland were committed with black powder weapons, which don't require a permit. You can just order them online and anyone can simply have one. So the issue of weapons, I would say, is debatable, still an open question. I know there are people who say they want to have a weapon because they'll need it, because they'll defend themselves, because no one else will protect them. Well, there are such opinions, but as I said, that's a completely different discussion.